I'm going to welcome Kim Stevens, and he has some slides to show us and some information again for us. So welcome, Kim.
Thank you. and beforehand, I promised the chair that I would simply provide light entertainment, because I know you've been very busy with budget deliberations. So in terms of why I'm here, really it's to provide you with a progress report on interregional collaboration, and the fact that this board, the Cowichan Valley Regional District, is a partner in a team approach to the Georgia Basin Interregional Education Initiative. So what I'm doing this month in conjunction with the rollout of Beyond the Guidebook 2010 is I'm actually meeting with all the regional districts. So this morning, that's why I'm wearing my tie, because I was at CRD at 9:30. So, different dress code, right? But actually, I should say that, in terms of, yes, I will only speak to 4 slides, right, out of the package, because you've all done your homework. But I do want to comment that I do like presenting in this boardroom, and I like the intimacy of this table. Just such a contrast this morning with CRD, where they just felt so far away. Anyway, so that's just a comment. So in terms of why I'm here in interregional collaboration, well, it has resulted in a deliverable which is beyond the Guidebook 2015, as they call it, and there is the Cowichan Valley chapter in there, which is really capturing the story of almost the last decade, and that's been a very important part of what we're doing. And so, why do I say beyond the Guidebook? Well, it's building on stormwater planning, a guidebook for British Columbia, which I was the project manager and the principal author of, released in 2002. So we continue to build, continue to add depth, continue to evolve our made in British Columbia approach to watershed health, watershed management. So you're wondering when I'll get to the next one, right? Okay. So in a nutshell, as you see there, really what we're, in terms of interregional collaboration, is really how to align regional local actions with the provincial framework. And really our focus is on water, restoring hydrologic integrity. And now I'll go right this one. This is an important takeaway because it's really introducing the new paradigm, and that new paradigm is to think of watersheds as infrastructure assets. And I emphasize that word infrastructure assets because, as local government, that is your primary function, is to think about those meat and potato things, the water systems, sewage systems, road systems. And really where we're at right now is to begin to also think in terms of watersheds as assets. Being an asset, it means manage, it means protect it. And so, kind of the key thoughts here that, a watershed is an integrated system. And I think, when Jeff Moore presents in a few minutes, you'll hear a bit more about that. But really a key message is, when you're thinking about a watershed and thinking it from a water point of view, is the 3 pathways by which rainwater gets to the streams. Those 3 pathways, what they are. It's that overland flow, which is a small proportion. It's that deep flow, to groundwater. I'm back. And and of course, where most of the water moves through the horizontal interflow zone. So get rid of that. And so really the next thing is to get rid of that, is that once you think about those 3 pathways, is to think of each pathway as an infrastructure asset. And if each of those pathways is an infrastructure asset, then each of those pathways provides a water balance service. And that kind of ties it all together back into the hydrology. What are the services? It's water supply, it's drainage in very common language, it's also water quality control. So that's kind of a very important thought to come out of drainage in very common language, it's also water quality control. So that's kind of a very important thought to come out of my presentation today. And I'm going to skip through a few here because I do know you've been reading your homework along with all that budget stuff. And I like to refer to the Cowichan region as an incubator for watershed systems thinking. So in terms of the municipalities that make up the partnership, sort of our go-to partners. So for a lot of the times on this side of the water, we go to the Cowichan Valley to demonstrate stuff. On the other side, we go to the district North Vancouver. And the one message I wanted to share with you, because I know what's coming in terms of a demonstration of the water balance expressed in a few minutes by Jeff, is it's interesting, that the pathway that British Columbia started going down in 2002 in terms of how we look at watersheds differently than the rest of North America, and a more a more science-based approach. What's really interesting to see is in the last little while, 2002 with Washington, or 2012 with Washington State, and this year with California, they have both basically jumped on our bandwagon in terms of the approach, the methodology, and the only difference between us and them is that, we're soft, right? In terms of, we're when I say soft, it's a soft approach in terms of we focus on outcomes, whereas down in the States they prescribe approaches, and so, California, Washington State, they've prescribed by what we're doing on basically an educational voluntary basis. But a lot of the application and the evolution has been we've used the Cowichan Valley rather as a demonstration region. I want to zap through. I want to highlight this one because this is really my first opportunity to actually thank the Cowichan Valley Regional Board for being our co-applicants for a gas tax grant, right, Brian? And that's a pretty significant initiative because we had to ask one of our partners to be the co-applicant, and we went through a process, and you guys said we're in, and essentially what it's built around is this game changer called Asset Management for Sustainable Service Delivery, a BC framework. And really, a key message that I've been talking a lot about in the last month with the release of Beyond the Guidebook 2010 is the fact that in 2014, we had 3 provincial game changers come to fruition. It started with the Water Sustainability Act. We still are getting in the process of getting our minds wrapped around where we're going with that. And then the second thing was the reissue of Develop with Care 2014. And thirdly, in December of last year, the BC framework. And so really what our mission is in terms of the next 2 years is how we will add to this framework by showing how to integrate watershed systems thinking. And, our objectives are modest. This is my last slide. Okay, am I on schedule? On time? I'm on schedule. Okay, good. So, in terms of as we begin to frame where we want to be by 2017, in terms of this region, this watershed called the Georgia Basin, with the Cowichan Valley, the Comox Valley, the Nanaimo Valley, we're not trying to change the world as a group. If by 2017, if everybody working in local government has an understanding of how to integrate natural systems thinking, that will be the accomplishment. And so, but it comes, the linchpin, the driver is the fact that we have the BC framework, and it does link it to capital grants and funding, which is, right, Brian, if you want the money, then the first step is an asset management plan. And so if a local government doesn't have an asset management plan, well, obviously the first step is to have the asset management plan, and then you're going to evolve from that to a truly sustainable service delivery for your core functions, water, sewer, and ultimately adding in the watershed. So it's a progression. And so this is our mind map in terms of how it all comes together. So if you look at the lower right-hand, bottom right-hand corner, you sort of see our world in terms of the partnership, the umbrella that's provided by the partnership, and for the last decade, being responsible for implementing the Water Sustainability Action Plan through partnerships, and this regional district has been a key partner. And as we begin to kind of educate and so that it becomes second nature to people, what do we mean by sustainable watershed systems through asset management? That's the way. 2 minutes, okay. Well, then the twin pillars are the water balance methodology, which we've been evolving, which, as I said, Washington State, California are copying us. The other one, which we will begin to bring forward or develop over the coming year, is an ecological accounting protocol. And I believe that Emmanuel Machado of the town of Gibsons has made a presentation in this region. So you kind of get a sample of where Gibson's going and how we will work with Gibsons and Count of Comox and others to bring that along over the next couple of years. That's it.
Excellent. Does the members have any questions? Director Morrison, then Director Yanni DiNardo, Director Kent, Director Morrison.
Thanks, Kim. Excellent presentation. I think that this is leading edge. This is leadership, and I'm thrilled that our local government's been part of it. I just reviewing the material, and I'll have to admit it kind of got lost in some of the budget stuff that I was reviewing over the weekend. But I did note that this is local government centric. You made mention early on about the Water Sustainability Act, but there's people in this region that are not thinking this is our bailiwick. That there's senior governments that have rules, that have defined legislation, and my view, they're not carrying out. We've got ministries that are more like permit issuing ministries than anything else. So, is there any hope of a reinvestment by senior governments into this kind of activity, and or are we as local governments going to be moving towards like what the town of Gibsons is doing as far as taking ownership and control of these issues?
Gotta remember that you've changed the system on me. Yeah, I can't speak for senior government, obviously, right? But I mean, I think a key message is, and actually I was in Victoria yesterday for a few meetings, and I did have this discussion about the very graphic that I just talked about, and really part of that discussion was, what we have to keep in mind is the Living Water Smart umbrella for all this, and that there's the different. They talk about the 5 buckets, in terms of there's the legislative bucket and there's the outreach bucket, and so and the tools, and so I'm on that kind of the outreach and tools, and so really I think going forward it's still that combination of we basically in terms of a regulatory framework we have you have pretty well everything you need now in terms of the Water Sustainability Act and the BC framework and Develop with Care. It's all there. The thing about British Columbia and the whole history of local government is this philosophy of being enabled. And so really what that means is, you can, I mean, you might call it sometimes downloading, but I mean, still our essence of what we do in BC is called, embracing shared responsibility. And so really, I think a key theme that I've heard in my discussions with people is if you think of something like the Water Sustainability Act, which will have a regulatory aspect to it, but the long-term key to how effective it is how people are going to collaborate through these different planning processes. So when I look at the Cowichan Valley and the great work you're doing, if my answer to you would be to say, you've done most of the work. It's how it gets packaged up to become the Regional Water Sustainability Plan, and part of that packaging up down the road is how we will move forward on the water balance methodology, the ecological accounting protocol, to bring it all together in terms of watersheds as infrastructure assets. Long answer, right?
A great answer.
Yeah.
I have Director Yanni DiNardo, Director Kent, then Mr. Crothers, and then Director Furstenau. So, Director Yanni DiNardo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Kim. This is I really appreciate all the stuff that you send out, and I value the way you put it as well, and I love the photographs. You're really on top of all the techno stuff. But it's easy, it's simple, and it's quick, and I really appreciate that. I share it on my Facebook continuously, and I'm wondering about the Emmanuel from the town of Gibsons. I don't believe that we at this board have had his presentation per se, but we have had, some of us have seen his presentation at UBCM's or AVICC, I think. And so maybe Mr. Crothers can...
Through the chair, he made a presentation through the Regional Water Governance workshops that were held through the summer of 2014. He was one of the guest speakers through that.
Anyway, thank you so much.
I just wanted to, thank you, Madam Chair, I just wanted to build on what Kim had said about the partnership between the CBRD and the IREI. We are co-applicants. The intent of that application, which we're hoping to hear in January, is to not only provide funding for the CBRD for us to apply the natural asset thinking around our asset management plan, but also to support the ongoing efforts of the IREI on behalf of our partnership, which includes all the regional districts within the basin and and the Sunshine Coast. So it is a collaborative application. There's a lot of benefit at stake if we're successful in terms of keeping Kim's work going, as well as furthering our efforts to build our asset management plan. So it really is a true collaboration.
Thank you. So I do have Director Kent, Director Furstenau, Director Dory, and then for a second time, Director Yanni DiNardo. So Director Kent.
Thank you, Kim. The presentation is good, and my question is around some of the specifics around the ecological accountability tool, and I guess the term I learned when going through sustainability programs with SFU is we call them ecosystem services, and I know that the David Suzuki Society has kind of gone that way. Is this ecological accountability tool? Is it? I want a bit of detail on the model that's being used for that, and is it actually valuing those services, or is it an analytical tool with respect to? Do you get my question there? Okay. Okay, great.
Yeah, and I guess I should maybe be clear that it's ecological accounting protocol.
Accounting protocol.
Yeah, and really, there's not a lot I can say about it because it doesn't exist yet.
Okay.
And you know, it's an idea that's been evolving over the last year, and really, you know, the essence of what got it going was looking at the experience of Gibson's, looking at the experience of the town of Comox, where we can get a case study contrast between a 20-year history of traditional development versus starting fresh with a new type of development. And I guess the essence of what is in our minds, what got this going, is that, you know, it's very easy for the Suzuki Foundation to come up with a billion-dollar or multi-billion dollar number for saying the value of in this region is, you know, so many billions, but that doesn't help you in local government. And so really, it's bringing it down to a pragmatic level, which really at the end of the day will come down to your financial statement, and that's where the lights went on with Gibson, saying, okay, they've established a precedent by having a statement, which the accountants, you know, BDOs, I think you're accountant too. So, I mean, the fact that a major accounting company actually crafted a statement which says, recognizing that there's risks if you don't manage these natural resources, but not being yet in a position to be able to quantify it. And so I think that's the difference, is we're trying to get it to the point, well, or rather we will try and get to the point over the next couple of years where you can quantify it. But to do that, it means that we've got to build that kind of partnership to the side, and two of those partners are Comox and Gibson's because they're already in the forefront, and bringing in some other folks. I forget the full name of the accounting, or there's the BC accounting, so whatever it is, right? So kind of bringing that to bear, and so that's why I make the distinction of the twin pillars, because the water balance methodology is the technical heart of what we do, but now we've got to bring along this ecological side in a very pragmatic way that influences how you're able to complete your financial statements.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer, and I think even the international, and I'm not certain what they call it, the group, but the international actuaries, again, all challenged with this setting a protocol for values so that we can actually account for them in our infrastructure and in our books. So a useful tool. So it'll be interesting to see the outcome, and you know, when they have a demonstration model, love to have it right away. Just that'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Furstenau.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I do also read your emails and sometimes reply to them, but you've never written back yet.
Oh, I didn't know you replied. Oh, okay.
That wasn't a dig, but as you might, I'm sure you're aware, in Shawnigan we have a wee bit of an issue with the provincial government right now.
Yeah.
And I see, you know, you're saying how to align regional local actions with provincial policy, and then you responded to Director Morrison by saying you can't speak on behalf of the upper levels of government, but, you know, do you have a mandate beyond this in terms of lobbying or advocacy when there are situations like this where watersheds, you know, that need additional voices? So we have a pretty clear idea of what we do and do not want in our watershed, and also a basin society that's doing a huge amount of groundwork on watershed mapping, and we do not have a cooperative partner in the province right now.
So a loaded question, right? Well, and by the way, just to come back to your comment, if you have emailed me, I guess I haven't got it, but because I reply to every email. So okay, so as long as you know that. But coming back to the basic question, well, the partnership is incorporated as a society. So as a society, you have to be really careful of that fine line between education and advocacy. And I think with us, there's a further fine line, which is that the partnership, basically the members are governments, right? And so we have to be very, very cognizant that our role is building capacities, building education within our local government partners, and really, so we're not advocates. We're not going to take on a cause. What we are trying to do, though, is through education and through the science-based approach, all that kind of stuff, is kind of get the word out as to how to do things properly. So hopefully that answer suffices.
Thank you. And our last questioner is Director Dory.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Kim, for coming and communicating with us. You've captured our attention in Saltaire, which is a small community on the island here. And we have two members of our Saltaire Water Committee here, Jim Whitaker and Richard Graham. And they're attuned to what you're doing. And we're working with our partner in Ladysmith. We share the same water source, and we'll have a roundtable talks about the water in our area. And so our main focus is education, and we're trying to do it without any money or very little money. So it seems like that seems to be the solution, is to get your community on board. We signed up people in our community to raise their taxes by $358 a year to upgrade our water system, and they all signed on the dotted line. Well, not all, there's 75% signed on the dotted line saying they would. That's enough. So do you see this moving forward without that much money, just like we're trying to do in a small local area? That it's something that's in the minds of people rather than big infrastructure outlays.
If I understand the question correctly, and I guess I would kind of continue to explain it in terms of the partnership, because the leadership of the partnership, basically, we're volunteers. Like, in other words, we don't have to be doing this. It's not like it's a government job. And so I think that's really, it's almost like, in a sense, it's almost like going back to the way things used to be. When my parents were, had a young family in the 50s and 60s, where there was more of a sense of people just had to go out and help each other and do things. So I guess you're probably, in Saltaire, it's probably a good model. And even the most recent example I could think of, which would be comparable, was, you go back 20 years ago, the Urban Salmon Habitat Program was probably a prime example of how communities kind of just started doing it. And it's interesting as I just reflect on the question, the two questions from Sonia and from you, and the fact that when I look at the MailChimp database that we have for our newsletters, and I look at who's in the system, the two groups that really stand out are those who are on elected positions like yourselves and the stewardship sector. And I think that's kind of telling me something. And I haven't quite figured it out yet, but those are the two groups that sort of are getting informed. And I think that's where it's leading to is the necessary coalition or collaboration between those who are in a position to make decisions and those who are in a position to advocate for the community. It's kind of a powerful combination. So whenever you look at the success stories, if you're looking at the Boca Creek situation in CRD, why was it successful? Because you had that alignment of interests between those who can make a decision and those who have the passion. So it sounds to me like you're on the right track and kind of getting your local community mobilized.
And that concludes the questioners for this evening. Thank you very much for coming, Kim. We always enjoy it when we hear from you. So thank you so much.
It's always a pleasure.